Hello my dear students, we'll be starting our e-learning system, so I'll be uploading videos of explanation and you need to watch the videos and then answer the questions in your assessment book. Keep your assessment book open and try to write down notes with me. Let's start. We'll start by section 2, chemical formulas and equations. In this lesson we'll go through these objectives. You have to understand how to write simple chemical formulas, to know how to write a balanced simple chemical equation, and explain how a balanced equation shows the law of conservation of mass. Let's share our thoughts. When you say water, do you think that Japanese people will understand? Of course no. They speak different language. So the scientists agreed to use chemical formulas to represent situations. For example, water, or the scientists should say H2O, sodium chloride, and ACl. Also, the chemical formulas tells us the number of atoms that make the substance. For example, look here, H2O. H2O, which means it's made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Oxygen molecule is made up of 2 oxygen atoms. Glucose, C6H12O6, means it's made up of 6 atoms of carbon, 12 atoms of hydrogen, and 6 atoms of oxygen. So, chemical formula is a combination of chemical symbols and numbers to represent a substance. And the chemical formula shows how many atoms of each kind are present in a molecule. Shows the symbols and show the number also. Okay, how to write the chemical formula? We have 2 compounds, either ionic compound or covalent compound. We'll start how to write a chemical formula for covalent compound. To write a chemical formula for covalent compound, we have to use prefix, and each prefix represents a number, like mono means 1, di 2, tri 3, tetra 4, and so on. I will give you an example to understand. Here is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, the absence of prefix indicates this is a 1 carbon atom. O2 means di, means it's made up of 2 oxygen atoms. So di, it's a prefix that indicates it's made up of 2 oxygen atoms. N2O means dinitrogen monoxide. Di means made up of 2 nitrogen atoms. Monoxide means it's made up only of 1 oxygen atom. We'll shift to how to write for a chemical formula for ionic compound. To write a formula for ionic compound, make sure that the compound's charge is 0. How 0? As we all know, the number of positive ions should be equal to the number of negative ions, so they will cancel each other. Like NaCl. Na has a positive 1. Cl has negative 1. So positive 1 and negative 1, they will cancel each other. So the end result charge will be 0. The overall charge is 0 because the number of positive equal to the number of negative. Make sure here magnesium chloride, MgCl2. Why 2? Magnesium has positive 2 charge. Chlorine has negative 1. So we need for each magnesium atom to combine with 2 chlorine atoms. 2 chlorine atoms, negative 1 and negative 1, negative 2. So the end result will be 0. Now let's understand what are the chemical equations. As we have learned before, the chemical reaction. What is the chemical reaction? Chemical reaction is adding 1 or more substance to give us a new substance. This is the chemical reaction. Chemical equation uses symbols and formulas as a shortcut to describe a chemical reaction. So to describe a chemical reaction, we use chemical symbols and formula as a shortcut. This is the chemical equation. As you can see here, carbon C plus O2 give us carbon dioxide. Carbon plus oxygen are called the reactant. This is the substance that we are added. And the carbon dioxide, this is the substance that are formed. This is the new substance that formed. It's called the products. So the substance that before the arrow called reactants, and the substance after the arrow called the products. We have also two signs, the plus sign here. The plus sign separate the two reactants from each other. And the yield sign, this is the arrow that separate the reactants from the products. So the chemical equation again made up of two of reactants and products, made up of plus sign and an arrow sign. While writing chemical equations or chemical symbols, we have to be accurate. The symbols or formula for each substance must be written correctly. Why? Look here. CO2 and CO. CO2 is completely different from CO. CO2 is made up of one carbon and two oxygen atoms. This gives us a gas called carbon dioxide. We all know what is carbon dioxide. It is a colorless gas and odorless gas that you can exhale. While carbon with only one oxygen atom give us carbon monoxide. The carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless, but it's a poisonous gas. So be sure to write the symbols correctly. CO2 is different from CO, and also different from C with a capital letter and O with a small letter. Small letter, this gives us a chemical symbol for the element called cobalt. Cobalt is a hard bluish gray metal. It is only an element like sodium, Na, lithium, Li, chlorine, Cl. This is an element. While CO2, carbon dioxide, this is a compound, and CO is a carbon monoxide, also a compound. So be sure that the symbols or formula must be written correctly, or it will not describe the reaction. Also, the chemical equation must be balanced. What the meaning of balance? That the reaction should be equal to the product. The mass of the reactants should be equal to the mass of the product. If I add for example, 2 grams of carbon, so the 2 grams must be found in the products also. The French chemist Anton Lavoisier found that the total mass of the reactants was always the same as the total mass of the product, as we said. This work led to a law called Law of Conservation of Mass. Law of Conservation of Mass states that mass is neither created nor destroyed in ordinary chemical reaction and physical change. That the mass do not change. You have to study well the law of conservation of mass again states that mass is neither created nor destroyed in ordinary chemical reaction and physical change. They are always equal, the reactants and the products. Okay, how to make a balance for an equation? We use something called coefficient. Here, an explanation for this. Focus on this H2 plus O2. H2 is an hydrogen molecule made up of 2 hydrogen atoms, the blue one, and the oxygen atom, oxygen molecule made up of 2 oxygen atoms. The H2 combine with O2 to give us water, H2O. When we count the number of hydrogen, 2 give us 2. They are equal. While in oxygen, 2 oxygen atom give us only 1. So this is not a balanced equation. So we have to add a 2 here, coefficient 2, before water here, before H2O. We have to make it balanced, so by adding 2. We don't put 2 here. We can add only 2 beside the molecule. So if you count again, 2 hydrogen gives us 4. Why 4? Because when we add 2 and 2, it gives us 4. So it's not balanced again. So we have to add another 2 before the hydrogen. Count again, 2 hydrogen by 2, so it gives us 4. And 2 oxygen, yes, at the end result, 2 oxygen here, the red balls, and here 4 hydrogen, they are 4, so these are balanced. We'll have a lot of examples in the next video inshallah. Thank you. See you in the next video.